The vast chambers of the Grand Council Hall on Citadel Prime echoed with the sneering laughter of 100 alien species. Ariane Brooks stood rigid, her naval uniform crisp against her body, as her gaze remained fixed on the central podium where Lord Ishervo's tentacled appendages gestured dismissively toward the holographic projection of Earth. The primitives wish access to the ancient sectors, Ishervo announced, his translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of amusement. They believe their crude vessels and barbaric technology worthy of treading where the forebears once walked. Tell me, esteemed members of the Galactic Coalition, would you give a particle disruptor to an infant? Or entrust your genetic lineage to a species that only mastered faster-than-light travel 3 generations ago? More laughter rippled through the chamber. Ariane felt the heat rising in her cheeks, but maintained her composure. Centuries of military discipline handed down through Earth-space fleets had prepared her for this moment. She had expected the ridicule. What she hadn't expected was how deeply it would cut. The motion to restrict human access to Quadrant Z19, containing ruins of the forebear civilization, is hereby presented for vote, intoned the council moderator, a being from Proxima Rigel whose crystalline form shimmered in the ambient light. Lord Ishervo has presented evidence that human interference could damage irreplaceable artifacts. Permission to address the council, Ariane said, her voice steady despite the contempt directed at her from alien eyes, compound eyes, sensory clusters, and other exotic sensory organs. Granted, but briefly. Earthling, the moderator replied, using the term that had become nearly synonymous with savage in interstellar politics. Ariane stepped forward. Distinguished representatives, Earth seeks only the same rights afforded to all coalition members under Statute 7890 Delta, equal access to pre-coalition ruins for scientific study. We have complied with every regulation, submitted detailed expedition plans, and assembled a qualified research team. Our technology may be newer than yours, but our methods are sound. Denying us access based solely on our species' age in the galactic community violates the Coalition's founding principles. Lord Ishervo's upper limbs twisted in what Ariane had learned was a gesture of contempt among the Ishkaran people. Principles are for equals, Commander Brooks. Your kind still wages war among yourselves on your homeworld. The archives show humans destroying their own historical artifacts for economic gain. And you expect us to believe you can be trusted with technology that predates your existence by millions of years. He raised a data crystal, its surface glowing faintly. I moved to not only deny the request, but to implement a formal restriction on all human vessels within 50 parsecs of any ancient sector, for their protection and ours. Ariane's communicator vibrated subtly against her wrist. A message from Dr. Selena Cade, the linguistics expert waiting aboard their ship in orbit. Asterisk breakthrough. Return immediately. Found something in Archive Data Section 12C. Asterisk. The Council's vote was already proceeding. Holographic tallies appeared above the delegates' seats. The outcome was clear before half the votes were counted. Motion carried, announced the moderator. Human access to ancient sectors is hereby restricted, effective immediately. This session is adjourned. Ariane stood alone as the chamber emptied, aliens of various forms flowing around her, as if she were merely an obstacle. Only Captain Rhine, commander of Earth's Light, approached her, his weathered face solemn beneath silver-streaked hair. "Did you expect anything different?" he asked quietly. "No," Ariane replied, touching the Earth insignia on her collar, the symbol so many in the chamber had openly mocked. But neither did they. As they departed the council chambers, Ariane's mind was already racing ahead. Dr. Cade's message had ignited a spark of hope. There was always another way, and humanity had always been good at finding it. The shuttle ride back to Earth's Light was tense and silent. When they arrived at the docking bay, Dr. Selena Cade was waiting, her typically composed demeanor replaced by barely contained excitement. Her dark eyes glittered with discovery, and she clutched a datapad so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "Commander, you need to see this immediately," Kate said, not bothering with formalities. I've been analyzing fragments from the Raxus 7 archive, cross-referencing ancient pictograms with partial translations, and she paused, glancing around the hangar bay. My quarters, Ariane said, understanding the need for privacy. Whatever Kate had found, it wouldn't do to have it overheard by the myriad listening devices undoubtedly scattered throughout Citadel Prime's public areas. Once sealed in Ariane's austere officer's quarters, Kate activated her datapad. Holographic symbols floated in the air, ancient glyphs and patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. This is what the Coalition calls the God's language, the writing system of the forebears, Kate explained. No species has been able to fully decode it, though the Ishkarans claim to understand portions. They've hoarded what little they've translated, using it to maintain their technological edge. I'm familiar with the politics, Doctor, Ariane said. What's your breakthrough? Kate smiled, the expression transforming her serious face. I ran the symbols through a comparative linguistics matrix, attempting to find any correlation with Earth's ancient languages. I expected nothing. But then, she tapped the pad, and a new set of symbols appeared alongside the ancient glyphs. Look at this. Ariane stared. These are human writing systems? Sanskrit, Proto-Semitic Linear B. Yes, and the structural similarities are far beyond statistical chance. Commander, these aren't just similar, they're derivatives. As if someone took the God's language and simplified it for human use millennia ago. Captain Ryan, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. You're suggesting contact? Ancient aliens on Earth. Or that humans might have once been among the forebears, Cade said quietly. I need more data to be certain, but the linguistic connection is unmistakable. And there's something else. She switched to another display, showing what appeared to be a genetic sequence. This was embedded in the archive data, a genome fragment. I compared it to our database and found partial matches. Let me guess, Ariane said, a chill running through her. Human DNA. Kate nodded. A specific marker sequence present in roughly 87% of humans. A sequence that no other known species in the Coalition shares. Silence filled the room as the implications sank in. Finally, Ariane spoke. If humans have genetic markers connecting us to the forebears, then the ancient sectors are our birthright as much as anyone's, Captain Ryan finished. The Council can't legally deny us access to our own ancestral sites. They already did, Ariane reminded him. And Lord Ishervo has enough influence to ensure that decision sticks, evidence or no evidence. We need more than theories. We need proof. Cade's eyes gleamed. There's only one place to get that proof. The ancient sectors, specifically the ruins on Helios 9. The most complete forebear temple complex ever discovered. The exact place we've just been forbidden to go, Ryan said with a grimace. Ariane stood, her decision already made. Captain, how quickly can Earth's light be ready to depart? Ryan raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we violate a direct council order? I'm suggesting we exercise our rights under coalition law. The restriction was passed based on false premises and specious arguments. We'll file an appeal, a process that could take months, and in the meantime, we'll gather the evidence we need. It's not that simple, Ryan warned. Ishervo has ships patrolling the jump points. They'll intercept us before we can reach the ancient sectors. Ariane smiled, a hard, determined expression. Then we won't use the jump points. Dr. Cade, gather your team and equipment. You have 3 hours. Captain, plot a course through the Kalidasa Nebula. It's longer, but the stellar interference should mask our signatures. Ryan looked troubled. That route adds nearly 2 weeks to the journey. And it's dangerous. Unmapped gravitational eddies, radiation storms. It's our only option, Ariane replied. Unless you'd prefer to wait while humanity's status in the coalition is permanently relegated to savages. Something shifted in Ryan's expression, pride, determination, perhaps a touch of the same anger Ariane felt. He nodded. I'll inform the crew. Minimal comms, full stealth protocols. As they dispersed to prepare, Ariane remained in her quarters, staring at the holographic display of the ancient symbols. Something about them called to her, as if they were words on the tip of her tongue, familiar yet foreign. A language her DNA remembered, even if her mind did not. "We're coming," she whispered to the symbols. "And this time, we won't be silenced." The departure from Citadel Prime proceeded with meticulous care. Earth's Light, a sleek exploration vessel twice retrofitted with the best technology humanity could produce, slipped away under the guise of returning to Earth for consultation. Only when they were safely beyond the massive station's sensor range did Captain Ryan alter course toward the swirling gases of the Kalidasa Nebula. Ariane spent the first days of their journey reviewing Dr. Cade's findings with growing excitement. The linguistic connections were too specific to be coincidental. Certain phonetic patterns in ancient Earth languages matched symbol clusters in the gods' language with remarkable precision. "It's as if the forebears left us breadcrumbs," Cade explained during one briefing session. "Not obvious enough to be detected without careful study, but persistent across millennia of human language evolution." "Could it have been deliberate?" Ariane asked. "A way to lead us back to them eventually?" "It's possible. Or it could be that humans are descendants of the forebears, perhaps a colony that lost contact, regressed technologically, and had to rebuild civilization from scratch." The implications were staggering. If proven, such a connection would fundamentally alter humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. No longer would they be newcomers, primitives barely worthy of notice. They would be returning inheritors of an ancient legacy. 6 days into their journey, as Earth's Light navigated the outer fringes of the nebula, the ship's sensors detected unusual energy signatures. 3 vessels on intercept course, announced the tactical officer. "Configuration matches Ishkaran patrol cruisers." Ryan's expression darkened. "They shouldn't be able to track us through the nebula's interference." They didn't need to, Ariane realized. Ishervo suspected we might try something like this. He's had ships waiting at every possible exit route from Citadel Prime. "Options, Captain?" asked the helmsman. Ryan studied the tactical display. "We can't outrun them. Their drives are too powerful. And we can't outfight them," Ariane added. "Not 3-1. "We could surrender," suggested the communications officer, earning glares from around the bridge. Ariane stepped to the central command console. "There's a third option. Navigator, what's the nearest gravitational distortion point within the nebula?" The navigator checked his instruments. "The Charybdis Vortex, Commander. 7 minutes at maximum thrust. But it's unstable, completely unpredictable. No ship has successfully navigated it in recorded history. No ship has tried with our adaptive shielding," Ariane countered. "Captain, your thoughts?" Ryan's weathered face showed conflict, but only briefly. "Better to risk the vortex than submit to Ishervo's justice." Set course for Charybdis. Earth's Light surged forward, its engines pushing to maximum output. Behind them, the Ishkaran vessels adjusted course in pursuit, their superior speed gradually closing the gap. "They're hailing us," reported communications. "Ignore it," Ryan ordered. "Divert all non-essential power to engines and forward shields." The nebula's swirling gases thickened around them, brilliant blues and purples interspersed with dark streaks of cosmic dust. Ahead, the sensors showed a massive gravitational anomaly, a spiraling vortex of energy and matter that could either provide their escape or tear the ship apart. "Approaching Charybdis perimeter," reported the navigator, his voice tense. "Gravitational forces increasing. Hull stress at 62% of maximum tolerance." "Hold course," Ariane said firmly. The pursuing vessels began firing, not to destroy but to disable. Energy bolts flashed through the nebula's gases, illuminating the cockpit with strobing light. "Shields at 83%, reported engineering. "We can't take sustained fire and navigate the vortex simultaneously." Ariane turned to Dr. Cade, who had joined them on the bridge. "Doctor, you said the gods' language might have patterns that affect energy fields?" Cade nodded hesitantly. "In theory, some of the symbols seem to correlate with quantum field manipulations. But it's just a hypothesis. We need more than theory now," Ariane interrupted. Can you configure our deflector array to emit a pattern based on those symbols? Understanding dawned in Cade's eyes. You want to create a resonance field using forebear physics? That's audacious. It's desperate, Ariane admitted. But if there's any truth to our connection with the forebears, their physics should respond to our attempts to use it. While Cade worked feverishly with the engineering team, the ship plunged deeper into the nebula. The vortex loomed before them, a maelstrom of energy that seemed to bend both light and reality around its edges. Ishkaran vessels closing, tactical reported, weapons lock acquired. Evasive maneuvers, Ryan ordered. Keep them guessing until the doctor's ready. The ship bucked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the worst of the enemy fire. But with each passing moment, their options dwindled. Ready, Cade announced finally. I've configured the deflector to emit a field pattern matching key forebear symbols associated with space-time manipulation. But Commander, this is completely untested. It could make things worse. Worse than capture or destruction. Ariane asked grimly. Activate the field. As Cade initiated the sequence, the ship shuddered violently. Around them, the nebula's gases began to glow with an eerie luminescence that matched no known natural phenomenon. The vortex ahead seemed to respond, its chaotic swirling taking on a more structured pattern. Incredible, murmured the science officer. The gravitational topology is reorganizing itself. On the tactical display, the pursuing ships faltered, their sensors presumably confused by the unexpected changes in the environment. Now's our chance, Ryan declared. Take us in. Earth's light plunged into the vortex, riding the newly formed gravitational eddies that seemed almost to welcome the vessel. Behind them, the Ishkaran ships attempted to follow, but were buffeted by forces their systems couldn't compensate for. The bridge crew held on as reality distorted around them. Light stretched and compressed. Gravity fluctuated wildly. For several heart-stopping moments, it seemed as though the ship itself might be torn apart by the competing forces. Then, abruptly, they were through, emerging on the far side of the nebula in a region of space far from their entry point. Position, Ryan demanded as soon as systems stabilized. The navigator stared at his readings in disbelief. Sir, we're in the Helios system. Somehow we've traversed nearly 40 light years instantaneously. Ariane and Cade exchanged stunned looks. The deflector modification had done more than stabilize their passage. It had somehow connected with the vortex to create what amounted to a wormhole transit. The forebear symbols, Cade whispered. They didn't just affect the energy fields. They reconfigured space itself. This must be how they traveled. And we just did the same, Ariane said, a sense of mingling with vindication. Run a full sensor sweep. I want to know if the Ishkarans followed us through. No pursuit detected. Tactical confirmed after a moment. We appear to be alone in the system. Ariane nodded, her determination reinforced by their improbable success. Set course for Helios 9. We have a temple to explore. From orbit, Helios 9 appeared unexceptional, a rocky world with thin atmosphere, its surface marked by impact craters and vast, ancient mountain ranges. But the sensors quickly located what they sought, a massive complex of structures built into the largest mountain range, geometric patterns too precise to be natural. The landing party consisted of Ariane, Dr. Cade, and 6 others, a mix of security personnel and scientific specialists. They descended in a shuttle, touching down on a flat expanse of stone that appeared to be an ancient landing pad. Stepping onto the surface, Ariane felt a strange sensation, a tingling awareness, as if the planet itself recognized her presence. The thin atmosphere required breather masks, but otherwise, conditions were surprisingly hospitable. The temple complex is 2 kilometers east, Cade said, consulting her scanner. Remarkable preservation, considering its age. The materials must be incredibly durable. They made their way across the barren landscape, each step raising small clouds of reddish dust. As they approached the temple, its true scale became apparent. A structure carved directly into the mountainside, its entrance a towering archway inscribed with flowing symbols that matched those from Cade's research. The god's language, Cade confirmed, her voice hushed with reverence. And look, these seem to be instructions or a greeting of some kind. Ariane approached the symbols, feeling drawn to them. Without conscious thought, she raised her hand toward the central glyph, a spiraling pattern that seemed to capture light oddly. "Commander, wait," Kay began, but too late. As Ariane's fingers brushed the symbol, it illuminated from within, a soft blue glow spreading outward along channels cut into the stone. The glow raced across the entire archway, symbols lighting one after another in a cascading sequence. Then came the sound, a low, resonant hum that seemed to emanate not from a structure, but from within their own bodies. The security team raised weapons nervously, but Ariane gestured for calm. "It's a recognition system," she said, somehow certain. "It's scanning us." The humming intensified, focusing particularly around Ariane. She felt a peculiar sensation, as if something was reading her at a cellular level. Then, with startling abruptness, the massive stone doors at the center of the archway began to part. "How did you know to touch that symbol?" Kate asked, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her caution. Ariane shook her head. "I didn't. It just felt right." The doors opened completely, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Unlike the exterior, which showed signs of weathering despite its remarkable preservation, the interior gleamed as if newly constructed. Crystalline pillars rose to support a ceiling etched with what appeared to be star maps. The floors were polished stone inlaid with metallic patterns that mirrored the symbols on the archway. "It's beautiful," whispered one of the scientists, voicing what they all felt. They moved cautiously into the chamber, sensors recording everything. Dr. Cade approached a wall covered in dense script, running her scanner over the symbols. "This is incredible," she said. "The symbols are generating quantum-level fluctuations. They're not just writing, they're active technology." Ariane was drawn to the center of the chamber, where a raised dais supported what appeared to be a control console of some kind. Like everything else, it was marked with the flowing script of the god's language. But unlike the wall inscriptions, these symbols seemed to pulse with inner light, responding to her proximity. "Doctor," she called, "I think this is what we're looking for." As Cade joined her, the sound of their shuttle's alert system broke the reverent silence. The security chief answered the call, his expression quickly growing grave. "Commander, Captain Ryan reports multiple ships entering the system. Ishgaran signatures. Lord Ishervo's flagship is among them." Ariane's jaw tightened. "How long do we have?" 20 minutes, perhaps less. "They've detected our shuttle and are launching landing craft." "Seal the temple doors," Ariane ordered. "Buy us as much time as possible." As the security team rushed to comply, Ariane turned back to the console. "Doctor, we need answers now. Can you activate this system?" Cade studied the controls. Her expertise in xenolinguistics stretched to its limits. "I think so. These patterns suggest an interface designed to respond to specific verbal commands." "The god's language," Ariane guessed. "Yes, but pronunciation would be crucial. A single misplaced emphasis could change the meaning entirely." Outside, they could hear the rumble of approaching ships. Ishervo's forces, coming to claim what they believed was theirs alone. "Give me your best approximation," Ariane said. "We don't have time for certainty." Cade hesitated, then nodded. She indicated a sequence of symbols on the console. "These appear to form a command phrase, an activation key. Based on my research, it should sound something like this." She pronounced a series of syllables, complex and alien to human vocal anatomy. Nothing happened. "Let me try," Ariane said, studying the symbols. Something about them resonated within her, as if awakening ancestral memory. She spoke the phrase, but with subtle differences in inflection and rhythm. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The entire chamber hummed to life, light flowing through channels in the floor, walls, and ceiling. The console before them reconfigured itself, projecting holographic displays of extraordinary complexity. Dr. Cade stared in astonishment. "How did you?" Before she could finish, A booming report echoed through the chamber. Ishirvo's forces attempting to breach the sealed temple doors. They're using explosives, reported the security chief. The doors are holding for now, but they won't last long against sustained assault. Ariane ignored the danger, focusing instead on the holographic displays. Images flashed before her, star systems, technical schematics, and what appeared to be historical records. Though she couldn't read the text, the visual elements told a story. A mighty civilization spanning countless worlds, technological achievements beyond imagination. And then, disaster. Some kind of catastrophe, spreading from world to world. They were dying, she murmured, understanding intuitively. Their civilization was collapsing. Cade was recording everything, her scanner struggling to process the wealth of data. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a sequence showing what appeared to be genetic manipulation. They were creating lifeboats, preserving their essence by encoding it into compatible species. Humans, Ariane said, the truth crystallizing. With their descendants, not just culturally but genetically. They seeded Earth with their DNA, gave us the foundations of language and civilization. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Commander," called the security chief. "They've breached the outer doors. Inner doors won't hold much longer." Ariane made a decision. "Doctor, is there anything in these records that could prove our connection? Something incontrovertible that even the Coalition couldn't ignore?" Cade studied the displays frantically. "Yes, here. A genome map showing the deliberate insertion of forebear DNA sequences into early hominids. It's exactly the evidence we need. Download everything you can," Ariane ordered. Then, turning to the console, she placed her hands on what appeared to be contact points. "I'm going to try something." Acting on instinct rather than knowledge, she focused her thoughts on communication, on being heard. The console responded, its displays shifting to show what appeared to be a planetary defense system. "Commander," warned the security chief. "Final door breach imminent." With a thunderous crash, the inner doors gave way. Ishirvo himself stood in the opening, flanked by armed soldiers. His bioluminescent patterns flashed with triumph. "Savages and thieves," he hissed through his translator. "Did you think you could violate council directives with impunity? This sacred place is not for your kind." Ariane stood tall beside the console, her hands still resting on the contact points. "You're wrong, Lord Ishirvo. This place is exactly for our kind. We're not intruders here. We're returning heirs." Ishirvo's upper limbs twisted in that familiar gesture of contempt. Delusional as well as primitive. "Step away from the sacred technology before you damage it with your ignorance." "I don't think I will," Ariane replied calmly. She nodded to Cade, who had completed her download. "Doctor, would you be so kind as to explain to Lord Ishirvo what we've discovered?" Cade stepped forward, datapad in hand. "The evidence is irrefutable, Lord Ishirvo. Human DNA contains specifically engineered sequences created by the forebears. We are not merely their cultural descendants. We are their biological legacy. Fabrications Ishirvos Nadalet. Your primitive science cannot possibly interpret forebear data correctly. Then perhaps you'll understand this," Ariane said. Focusing again on the console, she activated what she now recognized as a communication system. Her voice, when she spoke again, was amplified and transformed, overlaid with harmonics that gave it an otherworldly resonance. "I speak with the voice of the founders," she intoned, using the words that had appeared in her mind. "I stand as guardian of their legacy and inheritor of their trust. Those who would deny the truth written in blood and stone shall find no welcome here." The temple complex responded to her words. Energy fields sprang into existence around Ishirvo's forces, immobilizing them. The very air seemed charged with potential. Ishirvo's translator struggled to keep up with his rapid speech, but his alarm was clear. "What have you done? This is impossible." "Not impossible," Ariane replied, her voice still carrying that strange resonance. "Merely forgotten. The forebears, or founders as they called themselves, left safeguards in their technology. recognition protocols keyed to their genetic signature. A signature we carry. She stepped closer to Ishirvo, the energy field parting to allow her passage. They called themselves the Anunnaki, Lord Ishirvo, and they left their knowledge not to the strongest or the most advanced, but to those they chose as their descendants. To us, the evidence was undeniable. The temple systems responded to human commands in ways they never had for other species. The genetic records showed clear, deliberate modification of early human DNA by forebear scientists. This changes nothing, Ishirvo insisted, though uncertainty had crept into his posture. The council has ruled. You violated their directive. A directive based on falsehood, Ariane countered. When the full council sees this evidence, sees that humans are the rightful inheritors of forebear technology, they will have no choice but to reverse their decision. She released her control of the temple systems, and the energy fields restraining Ishirvo's forces dissipated. You can attempt to destroy us and this evidence, Lord Ishirvo, but the truth has been awakened now. Other temples will respond to human presence. The legacy of the founders, the beings you call gods, cannot be suppressed any longer. For a long moment, the chamber was silent save for the hum of ancient technology. Then, with remarkable restraint, Ishirvo lowered his upper limbs in a gesture that approximated resignation. The coalition must evaluate these claims properly, he said stiffly. Until then, this site will be secured by joint forces. It was as close to a concession as they were likely to get. Ariane nodded. Agreed. Dr. Cade will share her findings with your scientists. Transparency serves us all. As tensions slowly eased, Ariane found herself drawn back to the central console. The holographic displays now showed star maps, hundreds of worlds where forebear technology waited, dormant for millennia. A legacy not just for humanity, but perhaps for all species willing to move beyond prejudice and fear. What happens now? Cade asked quietly, joining her. Ariane studied the maps thoughtfully. Now we prove ourselves worthy of our inheritance. The forebears, the Anunnaki, didn't just leave us technology, Doctor. They left us responsibility, a chance to do better than they did. Outside the temple, Earth's light had landed nearby, Captain Rhine having negotiated safe passage through the Ishkaran blockade. Coalition observers were already arriving, drawn by reports of the incredible discoveries on Helios 9. In the days that followed, Dr. Cade's evidence was scrutinized by the finest scientific minds from a dozen species. The conclusion was inescapable. Humans indeed carried within them the deliberate genetic legacy of the forebears. The ancient sectors were as much their birthright as any species in the galaxy, perhaps more so. The Grand Council chamber on Citadel Prime was packed beyond capacity when Ariane returned 2 weeks later. This time, she stood not as a supplicant, but as a representative of a species whose place in the galactic community had been fundamentally reappraised. The Ancestral Connection Protocol is hereby established, announced the Council moderator. Human involvement in all forebear research sites is to be incorporated immediately. Commander Brooks will lead the joint task force overseeing these efforts. Lord Ishirvo, diminished but still powerful, had lobbied against the decision but found himself increasingly isolated. Too many had seen the evidence. Too many had witnessed humans activating technology that had remained stubbornly dormant for other species. As the session concluded, Ariane was approached by representatives from species that had previously dismissed humanity as primitive. Now they sought alliance, cooperation, cultural exchange. They recognize what we are now, Captain Rhine observed, watching the proceedings with satisfaction. No, Ariane directamente. They recognize what we always were. What matters is what we become. She touched the earth insignia on her collar. No longer a symbol of mockery, but of unexpected legacy. Across the stars, ancient systems were stirring, responding to the genetic key humanity carried. Doors long closed were opening, and with them, possibilities beyond imagination. When do we depart for the next site? Dr. Cade asked, her eyes bright with the prospect of discovery. Ariane smiled. Soon. There's a whole galaxy of our history waiting to be reclaimed. And this time, no one will call us savages when we speak the language of those they once called gods. High above Citadel Prime, Earth's light waited in orbit, its systems upgraded with forebear technology that responded to human touch as if greeting long-lost children. The stars beckoned, not as conquerors or thieves, but as returning heirs to an ancient promise. And Ariane Brooks, once mocked as a primitive savage, prepared to lead humanity into its cosmic inheritance.